I posted a video fairly recently about the impact of elevated heavy metals and how that can be a significant cause of fatigue for some patients. And someone posted a question, posted a question in the comment section. Yeah, that's right, on that video, and I'm going to answer that question. So the question is, what are the most common reasons for high amounts of heavy metals? How often is well water an issue? So thank you for the question. It's a good question. So quite frankly, in my experience, most of the patients that I work with, they're working, office jobs or working in environments where they're not being exposed to higher than average amounts of heavy metals. They're, not working in coal mines. They're not doing a lot of soldering. They're not shooting lead bullets. They're not, entering into tuna eating contests. There's really no obvious elevated source of heavy metal that they're being exposed to. But as best we can tell, and to my understanding, the reason that we can see elevated metals in folks who don't have any over the higher, greater than usual environmental exposure is we see the heavy metals building up because their bodies are not able to get rid of the metals that they're exposed to on a day-to-day basis. So just living on planet Earth, our forebears have made some decisions that ultimately led to a lot of pollution in our planet, in some cases ongoing pollution, and granted the amount of lead, for example, that's being emitted into the environment on a regular basis now is much less than it used to be. We don't have leaded gasoline anymore. We don't have lead-based paint anymore. Same thing with mercury, to my understanding. A large source of mercury contamination of the environment came from burning coal because there's a little bit of mercury residue in coal. And so without adequate, I believe they're called scrubbers on the chimneys of coal powered power plants or coal-fired power plants, then there was more mercury emission into the air, and so which then can sediment down to the earth or into the waters through precipitation, like through the water cycle. And so where there are better scrubbers now, my understanding is that coal burning is quite a bit cleaner, maybe still not perfect, but quite a bit better. So there used to be a lot more environmental contamination of heavy metals, but unfortunately, when the metals get into the environment, it doesn't mean they just they don't magically disappear. We can still get them in our food and drinking water and maybe different sources. It's air pollution, things like that. So the majority of the metals that come up from patients that we test, to my understanding, I believe it's just, quote unquote, just related to environmental exposure happening day after day in minute amounts. But if we have any kind of compromise of our detoxification pathways, if we're not methylating optimally, if we have other health issues going on like mold toxicity or chronic infections, or we're deficient in certain nutrients because of gut issues leading to malabsorption, then as our detoxification capacity goes down for any or all of those reasons, then we're going to be having an even harder time getting rid of the metals that we're exposed to, and the levels are just going to creep up and up and up and up and up over time. And enough tiny amount of accumulation on a daily basis times enough weeks and months and years can lead to a really notable elevation. So that is where I believe the majority of the metals are coming from in most of my patients. Now, granted, I have patients who do shoot lead bullets, or they are doing a lot of soldering. In my understanding, there's a little bit of lead residue in solder, or have some patients who work with stained glass as a hobby or for their profession, and there's cadmium in there. So like there are certainly, or dental hygienists who have, or dentists sometimes that have elevated mercury in their system from dealing with mercury amalgams, either implanting them or removing them, being around that sort of substance. So I've certainly had patients with higher than average exposures, but most of my patients, I think it's just coming from ambient exposure. In terms of there being an issue in well water, from time to time we'll see something coming up in well water, but it's relatively rare. On the rare occasion that we do see elevated baseline levels of metals coming up, even without heavy metal provocation, water is definitely something worth checking, but it's pretty rare. So thank you again for the question. And if anybody has any other questions on this topic or about anything else, just post in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer as soon as I can.